So, I am really excited to talk today about how to stop chasing the growth blindly and fix your finances first. Now, a lot of people doing this many, many years, what they've realized is that the first thing that people do is chase the income. However, there's almost a way to do it in tandem together, and that's what I want to go over with you. Now, it's definitely important to understand where your income is going to come from. A lot of mental health owners come from, a lot of you I've met through jobs, and then you wanted to go out on your own. Maybe you were on your own, you to get things intact with finances. The journey came in different waves. Maybe today, through this process, is going to put some control and some order to what's going on. It'll give you some ideas of things to work on. So the pressure to grow. As a therapist owner, you're probably thought, should I hire more clinicians? Should I open another office? Should I add new services? But growing without a structure just becomes multiple stresses. And I want to give you a story. I was talking with a brand new owner yesterday, and gratefully she came on. And one of the highlights for her was that she was so focused on the hiring, but she couldn't pay herself at that point of that conversation. Now, through the shift in the conversation of just seeing if we were a good fit, what we talked about was just the steps to make sure that she's paying herself regularly, or just at all, right? And how important that is and where that can go wrong before hiring somebody and all of the things in between. Now, I share this story for you to say is that it's common to jump to the income and to think also with jumping with income is that hiring a clinician will solve that problem. If you don't have a salary, hiring more people before you can support yourself is only going to make it harder. It's going to be a form of a credit card or some type of liability for yourself along the way. There's actually a different client of ours who told me that they were going to reduce their practice and just hire because they wanted to be more of a parent and they felt like they were missing out. Now, the reasons why people are doing things are all valid. It just doesn't mean that finances are going to let up with this and it's going to match. So when you're moving and making these scenarios, it's important to make a decision that's going to align with your finances, assuming that that's your goal. But if you're listening to this video, usually you want to align with your goals and your finances. So, but growing without a structure is just multiple stresses. I actually just keep thinking of stories around this. Now, a client of ours who did a VIP day and now she does the monthly services. What she said to me is that if she didn't stay doing that budgeting work first on her own for herself, she went through a death of a spouse and she had all sorts of different things going on for herself. And when we first met, you can feel that there was a lot of pain. And obviously, a lots of times when people talk about the pain, it's never about the money. There's usually something else. But with her, I really felt something deeper. And then when she came back when she was ready, it was around the spouse that passed away, but she was blaming herself for everything under the sun. This was a line that my mom said, everything under the sun. I don't know if anybody else uses that. And last night we happened to touch base and she said to me, Margot, she goes, just alone, just from the skills, if I didn't do that hyper focus in the VIP day, she goes, I would not have been able to keep up in this monthly process simply because I had to go through the hard. I had to go through that wave that was coming at me to really see and to slow down that my life mattered too, and that it was easier to build all these different things on top of it. So, what happens when you scale? Sometimes I say these stories before the slide, so just stick with me. What happens when you scale too soon? When growth comes before system, payroll comes due before client payments hit. This is actually, I say this sentence a lot. This is like the number one problem because the number one problems come all the time so often that it really it becomes so common and it's unfortunate. But payroll becomes due before the client payments hit. So the owner now is really, really stressed around the payroll because the money didn't come in. So it's either they can't pay or they're on a loan, they're trying to take it for someplace. Insurance reimbursements creates unpredictable cash flow. So I have some clients that they're very in line with their biller, and I have some clients that are not. And that on repeat, that it comes and that there's very little gap. I have some clients that they have a high accounts receivable. So from my end, I've seen it all over the map. Tax deadlines catch you off guard. However, I always wonder when people say that because all the tax deadlines are available online. It's just how well you really align with those tax deadlines because they don't really shift and change. It's not like an insurance reimbursement that it can change because of their policy. Tax deadlines are the same for years, unless it's on like a holiday or like a Saturday or things of that nature. Admin tasks pile up and they steal your evenings. This is a big thing because alone, this is an area where people don't value their time. And it could be we say that we can't afford someone. However, when you have 20 or more clients, 15 clients, depending on where you're at, you have to decide if you want the space open so that you could rejuvenate and that you could really show up well to your appointments, or if you want to pack into yourself with all of these different things. Now, some of my clients, I'll be honest with you, when I talk with them, they're very good at doing it all. However, they're also very good at not taking care of themselves or having time. And these are where the decisions have to come in. Even if you have somebody for like 2 hours a week, it's type of idea of like cleaning your home. It's that these admin tasks really pile up and they really not only just steal the evening, but it's just a space to just breathe and not to run to fill it up. So the CEO shift here is stability first. In other words, let's build on the stability, create the stability, and then everything goes around that. So ask yourself before expanding, is my bookkeeping current and reconciled? Do I know my break-even number weekly or biweekly? Do I have a tax plan for this year, not just April? If the answer is no, growth will only magnify the problem. Now, they're all valid, and I've seen them all. However, the break-even number, I find, is probably the most common out of all of this. Do I have a tax plan? I'm actually bouncing back and forth between break-even and bookkeeping. Lots of times, mental health owners, I'm seeing them doing it themselves, so I'll count that for a little bit, but they're all important. Whichever one you are, they're all good, but this creates the stability so that it doesn't magnify the problem. We grow for this. Okay, so the foundations before scaling. Reconciling your books. If you don't know where your money is going, you can't make CEO decisions. Now, I want to tell you in this video that if you don't have outsourced bookkeeping, I would love to help you. And while I will tell you in the resources in this platform, I created an Excel spreadsheet with a training so that if you wanted to do it yourself before outsourcing, it's a very comprehensive, like 9-minute video training where it teaches you on Excel where you can keep track of income and expenses, and then you can change things a little bit accordingly to your business, so that you have these things and it's a stepping stone to reconciling books. It's not a replacement, it's a stepping stone, but at least this is better than Excel and working on your own, and you have a CEO process. So reconciling your books so that you know where your money is going. Now, lots of times also people want justification on their expenses. And I want to just say this, there's not much I can say about people's expenses, but there's a lot that I could say, let me be real. But the truth is that if you spent the money, is it moving your business forward? Does it align with where you want the business to grow? Does it align with your business culture? Does it align with the business values? Is it intact for your business? Now, sometimes we just need fun money. Okay. I mean, I just realized I was at the store with my daughter and some drink was ridiculous, but we just thought the drink was good. I think it was like almost $5. And I was like, really? And we just wanted it and we got it. And I can say sometimes you just have to do it, but you want to know where your money is going. And the main thing is that if you feel as the business owner, because it's your money, nobody else could tell you what to do, is that if it's something that moved the business and the needle forward, then it was well spent. Next, tax plan is in place. Avoid the scramble of a surprise IRS bill. Now, a lot of our mental health owners came from places, or some of you who are not part of our clients or you're in our following, which is ideal as well, is that you're basically trying to do it in a certain way from like free bits and stuff through groups and of that nature. It's only going to last you so long. And what I will tell you, there is a training within this platform around it where it can also give you steps. But until you really have a process that's going to work with you, your whole situation, meaning like if you have a spouse, if you have children, and all of those sorts of things, so that your whole picture is planned out. The next one is cash flow targets. Know what you must bring in every 2 weeks to stay stable. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story with this. Now, I would always have business goals. And now I was looking at things in my life of where I wanted to go with business and whatever. And I started to not only set goals, but I set goals beyond the goals and then goals beyond the goals. Now, I never really looked at that, to be honest. And what I did notice for myself is that I was reading my goal, I was reaching my goals, and I was like, oh, this is not fun anymore because I'm a very competitive person. But what I realized is that I wasn't shooting high enough. And because I didn't like that, I was shooting too tight. And when I started to open up that space, I got a little bit more competitive. It's almost like at the bowling alley, right? Where it's like you get all the pins down except for that dang one, and that dang one doesn't happen when you do the next, when you take your next turn. So what I want to say is that if thinking just as of now works for you, that's good. But sometimes just to give you that broader vision, thinking beyond the now is really, really important too, so that you're always going somewhere and it's not just about today. And that if something happens, you're planning for that surplus and you're not in the scarcity of like check to check or session to session or paycheck or week to week, however you want to think about it. So, what does sustainable growth look like? When you scale with stability, payroll runs smoothly. Taxes are already accounted for. You pay yourself consistently, and expansion feels exciting, not scary. So, just to share a little bit here about HCT, our expansion is really, really exciting. We have courses that support people when they're not ready. We have a lot of gifted resources. We now have our school platform, a lot of resources that we used to work harder to give our clients, that we set it up in a way that more people can get it because we want to reach a bigger impact. And it's really, really exciting because we know our resources change lives, and this is what we're meant to do. Now, bringing this back into mental health, you're meant to change lives. Your gift, your expertise is the same thing. Now, take your area of expertise and think one area at a time. Like if you have like 12 different areas, it's going to be really hard. But when you start to streamline things per area and then build on it, it starts to compound in a beautiful way. It's kind of like the idea of when you put your pants on in the morning, one leg at a time, one shoe at a time. It's the same thing. As women sometimes, and our good men here too, we always think about multitasking and these types of things. And what I will say is that there's a really nice thing around doing one thing at a time, that you master it before continuing and going strong that way. And the other thing I want to tell you here is about growing is that doing this with an accounting team versus doing it yourself, it avoids that headache. It avoids that feeling of like you're not doing it enough. Are you doing it right? There's a lot of things that you catch on target, and that when you're doing it with somebody, they're seeing the bigger game and they're helping you with that target beyond target upon target to see bigger. Now, whether you reach them or not, it doesn't matter, but it always keeps you hungry and thirsty for the next stage. So the takeaway is build your foundation first and then scale. That's how you create a practice that grows without breaking. Now, you could have a practice that is in the middle of this and has these problems too, and it's okay too. However, if you're at the part when you're growing, a lot of this is going to make sense in that context. But let's say you already have a lot of these, but payroll is not in an ideal place. Taxes are not in an ideal place. Let's just take it one step at a time. Don't do expansion on payroll. Let's work on payroll, or let's work on expansion. Because if you work on expansion, chances are you need money. And if payroll is not intact, you really, really, for expanding, it's going to be more difficult because you need money to expand and you need to have cash flow that's not going to touch on other areas on your life. And when you're able to keep a stable surrounding of everything, that's when expansion feels exciting. And then you're kind of letting it build on each other and you're not limiting it so that we expand and we're not contracting in it. And that's what we want for you to see that. So did I think have so stop chasing your growth and get clear on the next steps. There's too little value in seeing that big picture and aligning your steps. I have to tell you, almost every morning before I go to sleep, I'm a little bit of a nerd with the way is that I have my check-in process of what I do for myself to keep myself intact because it's the only way that I can show up in addition, meaning to grow my business and to be able to give to all of my clients and our followings and so on. So maybe every day can be a lot for some people, but the 5 to 10 minutes every day for me, in the 2 times a day goes a lot easier than having it, let's say, a huge check-in once a week or once a month, like some people do, or quarterly or biannual, whatever this is. Those bigger processes, too much is happening that if it doesn't build on each other, there's opportunities that can be lost. And I'll tell you, this morning, actually right before this, I actually did early my end of day because it's Friday. And there was a few things I realized that I was like, okay. And I was able to really put it together so that I can really close for the weekend too. Now, if you're like me and you love your work, there's always endless what you can do. And what I will say is, just to loop this all together, to love your business, you have to love to plan and you have to love to spend the time on the foundation. It may not be love, it could be enjoy, it could be good, it could be okay. We can grow on that. But fall in love with building that and not tiptoeing around it because it's just going to go into finances, it's going to go into the team, it's going to go into taxes. I've seen it all the time. And what I don't want to happen for you is the payroll tax liability situation that's been happening for a lot of clients, or or just tax in general. Now sometimes having these balances come from a place and where it makes sense, you have a plan, and then we just work on moving on. There's a lot of different reasons on why these things could happen, but um, learning from those things that change us is really the most important. And that's what business is that when you make decisions, it's for the best decision and information that you have at the time. And I can't say that enough. When I looked at myself from yesterday morning until today, I was like, wow, was that really one day? And it was just under 12 hours. So I have to tell you is that when you stop chasing growth and you align with where you are, meet yourself where you're at, it is the best lunch date, it's the best breakfast date or dinner date you can get. With that in mind, I invite you for a call. If or when you're ready, feel free to ask questions, keep them coming. We love the questions. I cannot wait to talk to you more, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Talk soon.